welcome back to the channel. Now you're probably wondering what's happened to Paddy Panda. So this is really an update of the car, our tale of woe, and some very interesting faults that have taken us probably the best part of 4 months to work out what is wrong with it, and we're still not fully there. So those of you who've watched the series, we have a twin air Panda and we've bought a diesel one to compare it against, and you're probably wondering why we haven't done any comparisons. So we bought the car just before Christmas last year, and at that point we decided that we would paint the parts that were cream, and I didn't like them. If I roll back, we wanted to get a diesel one, we wanted to get the 4x4 one, and we live in Portugal and literally couldn't find one. So every time we found one that came up for sale that was roughly within our price bracket, it would be sold, or they would have been up for months and months and months, and when you ring, they've been sold months and months and months ago. So classic Portugal, they don't take everything down. So this one came up in one of the major cities in Portugal, in Porto, and we're in the Algarve. So plenty of pictures online, looked immaculate, looked good. Dealer with good reviews, Auto it's called in Porto. So this is my massive mistake, and I take full responsibility for it, not Nathan. I chose to buy it. I bought this vehicle unseen, and there is a lot wrong with it. Actually, when they delivered it, the interior visor was hanging off, but you know, we can live with that. And so I paid to have it delivered. Some guy delivered it, so I couldn't really discuss it with him. The dealer, my fault, because I don't speak fluent Portuguese, so therefore I think it's my fault if I can't converse properly, which is true. I'm an immigrant, so therefore it is my duty to discuss everything in their native language. So I take full responsibility for that. But I thought I'd share with you why you're not seeing this vehicle and the weird problems that we've had with it, which is why it's taken so long to diagnose what's wrong with it, and it's still not running. So when we bought our Mitsubishi L200 and our Mercedes ML, both were older vehicles, and this one as well, no thermostat in them. We could tell immediately this didn't have a thermostat in because it just never got up to temperature. And I'd love someone to tell me why you take a thermostat out. The people I have said it runs cooler, but that's not true, and so I can't get to the bottom of why they take it out. So one of the first jobs we decided we would need to do would put that in. So the car got rolled into our man cave, as we call it, and didn't move. We also noticed a little drip from the prop seal, which if you've watched that video, we changed the prop seal fairly early on in getting the vehicle. But we thought we would get it running, we'd change all the fluids, and we'd get it so that we were happy, because we were going to take it off-road and put it through a little bit harder use than most. And it's an older vehicle, although a relatively low mileage, and I'm going to caveat that with, I don't think it's only done 135,000 that they say it did. Said it had full history. Well, full history here means one stamp. So again, my fault. I didn't go all the way up to Porto and check these things out. So I took this vehicle as being a one owner, low mileage with service history vehicle. It turned up, it's not a one owner, it's not, I don't think, low mileage, because there's no service history, and there's some bits that you wouldn't, the carpet on where you rest your clutch foot is bare. So anyway, that's just my personal opinion. So the reasons that we didn't get straight into it was that the diff was weeping a little bit. We thought we would change all the fluids. Now, when I drove it home, well, Nathan drove it home first, I drove it home, and I thought, there's a weird transmission shunt. Can't imagine the seal's going to cure it, but let's get that done. Now that seal took a bit of finding, had to get it from Italy, a couple of weeks go by, we fit the seal. Hope you've watched that video. This is going to be very boring, so I hope you've got a cup of tea or switch off now. There is one very interesting bit of the fault, so stick with me, I'm going to try and speed myself up. So we changed all the fluids, and out the diff came a sort of treacle-like substance, and if you use the correct fluids, which I always recommend you do with a Fiat, the diff oil and what was in there are very, very different. So we changed the diff oil, we drove it home again, and that definitely made the shunting worse. So the treacle had been put in there to quieten it down, I believe, to sell it. So we weren't 100% sure what that problem was, so we booked it into a local mechanic here. As we've said a million times, we're not experts, we are tinkerers, and we're very lucky to have a man cave like we do, but basically that's for polishing and poncing around with things that amateurs can do. And we got to the point where this car needed to be looked at by a professional. So again, no disrespect to Portugal, but here, if you take a car into a non-main dealer mechanic, it will be weeks. So in this one went, and probably a month went by, and he rang me, I rang him, and he said, oh no, the car's ready for you to take away, I haven't done anything. The prop shaft centre bearing has gone, and it's a complete prop shaft on these vehicles. You can't replace the centre bearing, you have to take the whole thing out. Now, it didn't look in bad condition, we never noticed anything considering we changed the seal. So again, cut this story short, prop shaft was ordered. In the meantime, while we were driving those couple of first times, and I've forgotten the important part of this, we were getting when you went to fifth, you always sort of ended up heading towards reverse and getting a graunch. Now, we just thought it was maybe the clutch or something else. So when it went in for its diagnosis, in went a new clutch. Came back, he said the clutch was not particularly terrible, but he changed it anyway because he was doing an investigation, so he'd had a look at the gearbox, so it was to take it out and have a look and put the clutch in made a bit of sense. So that cracked on, so it's got a new clutch. I picked it up, still graunching. As you go to fifth, you're still graunching. I thought, oh, this is weird, but it was running okay. We're waiting for we know the centre bearing's gone, so we did our 0 to 60 as you hopefully have watched as well, and in that 0 to 60, in Nathan's excitement, which proved to be very lucky, he tore the top of the gear stick off. Now here we head towards our major problem, so let's get inside and I'll show you what's happened. So in Nathan's excitement to thrash FIAT Panda, he'd gone for one of his yank first to seconds, and what happened was that. So the gearbox, as you can see, I'll get some closer shots later on, as you can see that is fitted in, and this area here is a glue which attaches the gear stick to the device that moves the gears. Now, you can't just unscrew this and change your knob, so if you want to put a racing knob in a Panda, you literally have to destroy this to get this off. So this came away, and what we then did, I've put this back together, obviously we've taken it apart. These come in with some small push-in fittings, arrowheads as I would call them. Then this part lifts out, there's a couple of screws there to take that part out, and then fittings inside. So that is literally undo those two screws and lift away, and then that'll show you these two screws, which there is another screw which I discovered somewhere down here. Now can't find it in there, and then that part lifts off. So let's get that out the way. And let me bring you in a little bit closer. Hopefully you can see, and this is fairly clear in here. So let me get this out of here. So our major problem when we got the car was that, as I say, the first instance of we thinking there was something wrong with it was that when you changed from fourth to fifth, it would go in, but you have this tendency to graunch it across to where reverse is down here. Now, when we uncovered this item, which is inside there, and you can't get to it without causing severe damage before you go having a look in your car, this part here slides onto this area here, and as you can see, stops you going into reverse. So with this knob on here, hopefully you can see this, you lift that mechanism and into reverse you go. Now, we were stupid enough, although we've got that in Pete, we were stupid enough not to notice that somebody in their extreme wisdom had superglued this inside there so that that sat like that at all times. and there was no way you could not get it into reverse. Now again, there seems to be nothing wrong with this at all. It works perfectly. It purely is a modification that someone's done intentionally or by accident, that they've locked that in. Now that problem with the graunching and the slight vibration led me to believe it was a clutch. Completely wrong in that assumption. So there is a clutch gone in, probably wasn't necessary. The mechanic has now gone to the centre bearing issue. He didn't notice this at all either. So this is just the weirdest fault I've ever come across, and it's not even a fault, it's an intentional modification that just causes it to drive badly, you to graunch your gearbox, and for the life of me I can't see why anyone would do that intentionally. I'm assuming they've done it unintentionally. So anyway, let's go to the next issue. So our continued tale of woe. So the car's been in. This is our new prop shaft. Fault was in that centre bearing. I'm not 100% convinced again that was the major issue, but this I had to get from Poland. So again, that took another probably 3 to 4 weeks for me to find it. 2 weeks for it to be delivered. Then it went back into the mechanic, and another month went by, and we've now got it back. But the problem hasn't been solved. So our issues have been the weird gluing of the gear stick to put me on the wrong scent. Not that I'm any, we've always said we're not experts, hence why this has been going into a real man. And so that led me, the little shunt, the weep and everything led me to the clutch. So I'd bought a new clutch, so I got him to put it in anyway. It wasn't that. He suspected it was this. Didn't see anything wrong with the graunching into fifth, but as I say, when we got it back, Nath luckily ripped that off. So there we are. We've discovered that problem, so we can fix that problem. And we'll do a video of how we do that, because it's quite complicated and it's a one-hit wonder. You glue it back on and it's not coming back off, so fingers crossed we get that right. So this part again, the gearbox has been given a clean bill of health so far. The prop shaft has now been replaced, so let's look at the next issue that we believe we've got. Now at that point through process of elimination, that it's the rear diff that's knackered. As I say, when we drained the fluids out of this, which I'm sure we filmed, but forgive me, I'm getting old, I can't remember. It was very gloopy, horrible stuff. We thought there was an additive in, and there probably was, amongst other things, to quieten it down. So this little devil has got to be replaced. So at the moment we are gearbox in the clear, new prop shaft, and this devil is obviously quite hard to find. So I've got one coming from the Netherlands. It was very cheap. It was allegedly out of a 34,000 mile 1.2 4x4. This is a 1.3 diesel 4x4. Now, I'm reliably informed that it will go straight on and they're all the same, and the cranking is all the same on all of these cars. This part is universal regardless of engine. So let's see, that could be an error, but obviously we won't be fitting it. The real man will be fitting it. It's an electronic differential system. It might just go in, but I do feel this is out of our pay grade. So let's see if that's the repair. But the basis of this update was, one, to tell you why we've done nothing with poor old Paddy. Two, to show you just what an idiot I am buying a car unseen. And three, you never know what you're going to find. And that gear, the gear shift gluing, how would we have ever found that? And although we had the lift for reverse in Pete, we just assumed that this older model didn't have that. So stupidity on our part, but we didn't really think about it. It was just as we were shifting into fifth, you'd get this crack as you just touched reverse. So we're pretty confident we will cure that. But I'll say when Nathan's back, he's wandering around France, just as another interest, because it's not going well for us. He's driven to meet one of his pals in, where did they meet? Marseille. So he's taken Murdoch because he's got that, so he can sleep in the back of it, so they're camping. And he's got to Marseille and he's overheated. So they separated today, and that's him and Murdoch. Murdoch is on a low loader coming back to me here. Not that I'm going to do anything to it. We'll see what the issue is. And he's carrying on now. So he's hitching a lift with his mates back to the UK, and then he's going to fly home to Portugal probably in a week or so's time. So not much from us probably in the next week or so. I'm just going to be doing a little polishing of the cars and what have you, and looking underneath, seeing where all my hard-earned pension is going. But anyway, it's a long one, it's been boring, and you've had to look at me too much, and if you've got to this point, well, you know, come on, you've done very, very well. But hopefully you found that interesting, and we'll let you know how we get on with the rear diff change.
It's nice, bouncing around.
Right, better get this down. I'll put a little snippet in, so let me see if any of you can guess what's appeared. In fact, it's right there, and I am drooling over it. So there's something new in our garage, and I am in love. And I'm not allowed to drive it because it's not mine.